Well, good morning, everyone. This is Jerry Durant. Welcome to our webinar. I'm with DNA Business Management Solutions, and I'll be your host for today. Just a little housekeeping before we begin. We've muted all attendees simply since we're recording today's session, but we'll email you out a copy on Friday. Please share any questions in the chat window so that we can respond to them during the Q&A session at the end. And now, without further delay, I'm happy to introduce our guest speakers, Carlos Balagat and Stephen Villalobos. Please proceed, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Truly appreciate the intro. And as Jerry is saying, my name is Carlos Balagat, and my teammate, Steve Villalobos, is here with us. We both work for Paytelligence, Inc. Now, Paytelligence is a software application that allows Sage 300 users with logon IDs within your Sage 300 system to process credit card transactions directly against your AR invoices and AR credit notes, credit card refunds, which would make life easier for those who do not have an integrated credit card solution. So let's begin. When Paytelligence actually is installed in your server, Paytelligence installs itself as part of Sage 300. It can only be accessed with a user Sage 300 user ID. Paytelligence integration goes so far into Sage 300 in where if you wanted to, I believe, administrative services, under security groups, you can choose specific access to Paytelligence modules as well as specific credit card transaction types for your user groups. This provides strict access not only to process credit card transactions, but for instance, the ability to process a refund. Maybe certain users shouldn't have that capability in Paytelligence. And that is all controllable under Sage 300 security groups. That's the level of integration we have. Now, when Paytelligence is installed, it does provide specific modules for AR customers. You will have a setup group, which really in part is the install and also the ability to configure multiple merchant accounts within Paytelligence. Paytelligence doesn't have any limitations as to the number of merchant accounts it can use to process credit card transactions. This is very helpful for those who may have a wholesale business and then a retail front, having two separate merchant accounts, one for wholesale and one for retail. Each can be processed directly in your Sage 300 system using Paytelligence. Paytelligence drives PCI compliance to your system. Once you use Paytelligence, Paytelligence uses a technology called tokenization to drive PCI compliance. Tokenization allows Paytelligence to receive credit card information, and when that credit card information is validated, it is stored outside of Sage, outside of your server or SQL database. It is stored remotely in a virtual vault, keeping all the sensitive credit card information locked down and encrypted. Having no credit card information within your server, your Sage 300 database, and Sage 300 ACPAC ERP system drives PCI compliance to your overall business. When credit cards are needed to be stored in Paytelligence, you would simply enter the Sage 300 customer number into the card ACH maintenance screen under the customer field. Tabbing over will show if any prior credit cards were stored. To add a card, simply click the Add button on the bottom of the card ACH maintenance module, choose the appropriate merchant account if you have more than one, and then select the appropriate credit card that you'll be storing. I should share that I am connected to a live demonstration gateway. So the transactions I'm processing are semi-live in that I am connected to the gateway, however, by no means affecting any banks or transacting any money. I'll be using demonstration credit card numbers throughout the demonstration. So let's go ahead and let's store this Visa number. And once the Visa number is stored, then you set the appropriate month for expiration and obviously the appropriate year. You would obviously, if needed, change the name to match the name of the card and then enter the 3 digits or 4 digits in the back of the card. And since this is a dummy card, I'll be just entering 3 ones. In Paytelligence, you have the ability to store a card, which is set to default here, and the value of storing a card, again, PCI compliant. None of the sensitive credit card information is found anywhere in your local systems. But when you store a card, you can reuse it for the invoice next month. And Paytelligence can store an unlimited number of credit cards per each of your Sage 300 customers. I'll go ahead and finish this off by clicking Save. But when I do, Paytelligence will validate this card. It'll actually process a $1 pre-auth. Now, a pre-auth transaction will never show up on the cardholder statement unless it is captured. However, this validation does allow knowledge to know that the credit card account is transactable and at least has $1 of credit available. As you can see, the card is accepted, the CVV matched, and because this is a dummy card, we don't test for address because there is no addresses to dummy cards. When you click Close, the card is then stored, ready to be used in Paytelligence modules. Now, in this tool, you could also have the ability to update credit card information. As we know, expiry date changes, customer names change, and address change, and you can simply manage it through here, as well as, if need be, to delete a card, you simply just click Delete. And this is how one would manage their stored credit cards for all their Sage 300 customers. So let's get into the meat of this demonstration and show you exactly one of the tools that's available for Sage 300 AR customers. The first tool I'm going to be reviewing is called Transaction Processor. Transaction Processor is a favorite tool among our accounting users. It works very similarly. Again, you would enter the customer needing the Sage 300 invoice to be paid, and that would be customer 3015. When you tab over for AR customers, AR invoice will automatically be defaulted and selected. What this tool allows is the ability to view all unpaid AR invoices in the Sage system for this one particular customer. This tool is a favorite for credit card collections. You have the ability to use a prior stored card or add a new card, as I will do in this demonstration. And this screen should be similar, exactly the same as the card ACH screen. But this allows you to add a credit card on the fly. As we know, some customers want to use a preferred card just at the moment when you're ready to commit a processing transaction. So let's go ahead and enter the same dummy Visa. And then again, the expiration date, and then the CVV. Customer did say for future transactions, this is the card they want to use, so we'll set this card as default and click Save. The same validation is done, and it shows the card is accepted. And since we set the card as default, it automatically sets itself to be used. There is other information here, such as the card health light. This little light bulb here will turn 3 different colors. Red if the card is expired and unusable. You can then use the zoom button to change the expiration date as needed. Yellow when AVS, address verification, had not matched, or CVV code not matched. Depending on the gateway settings for your merchant account, you would still be able to process transactions accordingly. Now, in this lower section, as I mentioned, it displays all open invoices for the particular customer. While on the call, you can then negotiate with your customer to see which invoices they'd be willing to pay. To select all invoices, you could choose the Select All button, making the Apply column all to yes. You'll notice that the tool will also provide a subtotal on the bottom. Now, why this is a favorite for collections is because you can short pay any one of the invoices based on what the customer is willing to pay. So in this scenario, let's say the customer is willing to pay $2,000, leaving a balance of $429.13. So let's go ahead and enter $2,000. Now, the customer can choose to short pay any one of these invoices or potentially not pay an invoice by double-clicking the Apply cell. Doing so turns the payment to zero, as you see. But in this demonstration, we're going to pay every invoice except for that large one, and we're going to short pay it, leaving a balance of $429.13. Now, before I click, excuse me, process, I should note what Paytelligence will do in Transaction Processor when paying multiple invoices. It will process only one credit card transaction in the total amount of $5,743.28. This will save you credit card processing fees rather than processing each invoice individually. And the receipt will also be created inside Sage accordingly, which I will show you as part of this demonstration. So let's go ahead. We have agreement from the customer to process a total of $5,743.28 against card ending 6781. I'll go ahead and click process. The transaction is complete. We have an approval code from the gateway. Now in Paytelligence, you also have the ability to have it create a specific receipt for you that you can send to your customer. Now this receipt uses Crystal Reports, which is the major, I guess, document generator, if you will, within Sage 300. This receipt still requires a little bit of customization. However, this is where your channel partner can come in to customize the appropriate logo and the name of the receipt. But as you see here in this demonstration, we did process a transaction against card ending 6781. Excuse me. The receipt does show the approval code for the transaction and each of the invoices that were paid, including the amount of the invoice that was paid. Specifically, the short pay we paid for $2,000. You could use Crystal Reports then to export and do whatever it is that you do with documents and Crystal Reports, but when you are done, you would simply then just close Crystal Reports and you'll mark back to Transaction Processor. Now notice, Transaction Processor, for any invoice that is paid in full, will never be shown again. This prevents duplicate payments for the same invoice. However, this customer here who did pay $2,000 against this remaining invoice does show the remaining amount due of $429.13. This makes it very easy for your accounting representatives to transact on any invoice within your Sage 300 database. Excuse me. This finishes the Transaction Processor demo. Let's move on, because in Paytelligence, we also have the ability to process invoices in mass. We have the ability to create a batch of open AR invoices. Now, this tool will also work with RC recurring invoices that Sage 300 can create. Majority of AR customers do have some sort of recurring invoice, whether it's done automatically using the RC invoice or created monthly. Now, in Paytelligence, you can take all these monthly invoices and put them all in a specific batch. So let's go ahead and create our first batch. We're going to use what's called Paytelligence Recurring Settlements Batch Entry. Let's go ahead and label this monthly November invoice. And to create a batch, you can preset the criteria that you can choose to select the invoices to include in your batch, making life easier for those who need to operate this tool. Once you've selected the specific criteria, simply run the query button and it'll look within the Sage 300 database for the specific criteria that match the invoices to be included in this batch. Let's go ahead and make the screen a little bit bigger so we can see exactly what's going on. In this screen, we've created a batch of roughly, I believe, 5 customers, right? And within each customer, here they are in the customer header area. When you click into a customer, the detail area shows the specific invoices needing to be paid. And if you would imagine, this could be hundreds of customers and certainly thousands of invoices. You wouldn't have to process this one at a time. This would be done in a batch form. You do have a level of control. Let's say for customer 3005, they had called in and said, hey, we prefer to process that $1,000 invoice using our second credit card. And in this customer, they do have 2 cards. One is a MasterCard and one is a Visa. So let's go ahead and change the card to be processed for that specific invoice. You have that level of control. Now, if this was processed under the same card, what Paytelligence will also do here in this tool is it'll combine all the invoices to be processed under the same card when it is instructed to do so. It will only process one credit card transaction instead of multiple transactions per each invoice. Again, this will save you credit card fees when you use Paytelligence to process your open invoices. We could continue to review the batch, making sure that each of the invoices are correct, and you have the ability to save the invoice. Maybe the person that builds the batch isn't the authorized person to click process. You also have the ability to print the invoice, again, using Crystal Reports, which you can export to an Excel spreadsheet as needed. When you are ready to process the batch, you would simply click the process button. I'll go ahead and do so. However, since this is a batch, we could be processing thousands of invoices in this batch automatically. So it will ask a security question. If you answer the security question incorrectly and you did not mean to process the batch, well, we'd have to stop the batch, and if any invoices were processed, easily do refunds. But let's go ahead and finish this demonstration for batch processing credit card capabilities, right, within Sage 300. Let's click yes. Now, the batch will process on its own, allowing your Sage user to use other modules within Sage to get other work done. When the batch is complete, and it roughly takes 3 to 4 seconds per invoice, it will provide a window showing which invoices did in fact approve where the credit card transaction processed. Where the invoices are declined, well, those invoices will remain unpaid. But we do see that we did receive our approval codes. Then we click close. Now, you'll notice the batch won't be able to be processed because Paytelligence knows the batch had already been processed and prevents anyone from processing that same batch. We've just processed roughly 8 invoices, I believe, or 7 invoices in that batch in a matter of seconds. Imagine what this could do for your business if you're processing over 100 invoices every month for credit card transactions. The last processing tool I want to show is something called Miscellaneous Processor. This is one of our strongest credit card processing tools, as it replicates the same strength of credit card transactions that your virtual terminal may have when you log in to process credit card transactions manually outside of Sage 300. What this tool can do is, if you are a business, for instance, that needs to take a deposit before starting a project or an order, this tool can simply do that, and you don't even have to create a Sage 300 document. Simply choose AR invoice. In the document field, we don't have a deposit document. We can just collect the payment, name it deposit, as a receipt would be created. Now, this receipt, because there's no invoice attached to it, will be a PP, a prepayment Sage 300 document receipt. And let's go ahead and say it's a $500 deposit. If the customer wanted to use a different card, you simply click the new button next to the card window to add a card. If the customer had more than one card stored, you can select it in the drop-down menu. If we needed to update the credit card information, we can use the zoom button. When you are ready to process this credit card transaction with customer approval, simply click process. Doing so will transact on this card ending 6781. We received an approval and the approval opcode. This is a deposit somewhat. It is a prepayment, and it'll show in the Sage 300 customer account as a prepayment which you could apply once the project or order or invoice has been created. Miscellaneous Processor is also used for credit card refunds. Refunds can be somewhat tasky when you're doing them outside of Sage 300. So in this scenario, I'm going to pull up customer 3020, tabbed over, credit card that was used. Now, I created an AR credit note for my refund, which is highly advisable. That way you know exactly what's coming back into your Sage 300 system. And then I'm going to choose the credit note number by hitting the magnifying glass. I'll go ahead and select that credit note. The last thing is we need to prove to the gateway that this credit card was in fact transacted. So I'll go ahead and enter the approval code for the original debit transaction, 206 26 83 402 dash test. Once we've entered the approval code, we have the amount of the refund. We simply click process. It communicates with the gateway, and we have our credit card refund fully approved. In this scenario, we can also print a receipt, very similar as you've seen in Transaction Processor, but I do want to show you what a refund would look like. And here it is, same thing, approval code, and it shows the credit note and the amount of that refund. Again, this is Crystal Report, so you could export this as PDF and email it to the customer as needed. This is miscellaneous processor. Now, I've shown all the credit card processing tools that's available for AR customers. However, I do have more administrative tools I want to show. When you're processing credit card transactions, especially outside of Sage 300, you're logging into a virtual terminal, getting all your transactions processed, but then you also have to log into Sage 300 and create a receipt or a refund entry for every single credit card transaction that was processed outside of Sage. Paytelligence provides you a day-end routine. This day-end routine for AR customers will not include inventory control. We'll only have one option here, and when you click process, as I'm doing now, this will create all your approved credit card transaction receipts for Sage 300, as well as all your approved credit card refund transaction, as it will create a refund entry. When it is done, it says process complete, which more than likely save you at least half hour, roughly an hour's worth of work. You simply would then, part of a Sage 300 process, is go to your accounts receivables under AR transactions and go to the receipt batch list. When you go to the receipt batch list, it will show that Paytelligence created the receipt for 8 transactions that we processed in this demonstration. Excuse me. Let me go ahead and open this receipt so you can see how it's created. This is a receipt here where we use transaction. No, this is a single payment that was part of the recurring settlement for a prepayment to, oh, no, I'm sorry. This is our deposit. This is what a deposit looks like. This is a prepayment applied to a deposit, and it'll sit on this customer account once you've created your invoice, which you can apply. This next one here this is a receipt. This was part of our recurring settlement. Now, one thing to note, when Paytelligence creates the receipt, under the reference, it automatically will show the last 4 digits of the card. It'll show the payment code, card type, and under the check receipt number, this is actually the gateway transaction ID, where if you needed assistance from, say, the gateway support or merchant account support, they need to look up a transaction for you in the gateway. You would just simply share this transaction ID with the representative, making life easier so you don't have to go hunting for exactly what you processed. Whoops, didn't want to move on to that batch, sorry. And then let's look at some other receipts. This is again part of the batch. This is a receipt here that we used for Transaction Processor. Notice it batched all the fully paid invoices under one receipt, coding it accordingly, and it also coded our short payment, leaving a new balance of $429.13 for this customer and applying the payment of $2,000 to this receipt. This is one of our favorite tools that customers use, as it does save them an absolute amount of time. After reviewing this, last step would certainly be click post. Then all these payments will be recognized, and certainly other steps then to manage a deposit, but that's all Sage steps. And then lastly, the refund, credit card refund that we processed, we should also check the refund batch list. As you see here, Paytelligence also created the refund batch list on behalf of the user. Much, much easier done this way than doing it manually. You simply would just click post to then recognize that refund in your Sage system. Now, the last piece of administrative tools that I have for Paytelligence are reports. Paytelligence does provide you reports, such as a transaction report. So you can summarize all the transactions that were processed daily or weekly based on date ranges or monthly, whatever your needs may be. Often our customers will use this to match it up to their transaction report that they receive from the gateway. To run the report, simply enter the transaction date range, and I'll just use today, so you'll see all the 8 transactions plus the refund. And then I'll leave this open, making all customers show up that processed any credit card transactions. The report does use Crystal Reports, making it easier, again, to customize and export out. And it does show customer ID, the document number, the amount transacted, and the document amount, which is very important because it will show the short pay if any discrepancy is quickly identified. And again, this would need some formatting, but you can certainly add more data as needed by working with your channel partner. The next report I want to show is very helpful. It's a credit card report. This is very important to understand the credit cards that are stored within your Paytelligence system. And again, to note, none of the sensitive credit card information is ever stored within your Sage system. More importantly, what this report provides is the ability to report on expiring credit cards. So let's run a report for credit cards that are expiring 12/23 to, say, February 24. And I might not have any, but maybe. When I click print, any cards with these expiring date range will show, and we do have some. So again, Crystal Reports, you can then send this out to the customer account managers to ensure that the next time they speak with these customers, they can update the expiration date accordingly. The other reports that you see here are really meant for our order entry customers. However, all customers, including Sage 300 AR customers, will receive this transaction inquiry. This is the main report that will allow you to view, where is it? Hold on. It's hidden in my screen. Let me close it. Okay, let me try again. My apologies, it's showing up on a certain portion of my screen that we can't see. Let's see if I can maximize it. Good Lord. Why is it not showing? Hold on, I'm gonna adjust the screen so we can pick it up, and then I'll readjust it back. Okay, here it is. Let me just close that, and then let me reopen it. Perfect. I'll make it full size, then I'll readjust our screen. My apologies. Okay, transaction inquiry. This is a very, very easy tool to use. This allows you to highlight, if you have more than one merchant account, the ability to report on specific merchant accounts, to report on specific customer ranges, card numbers, locations. If you are an order, you won't have the order entry options, but you'll have AR invoice number and credit note number. This will allow you to view through different methods and viewpoints any credit card transaction that has been processed in your system. If I click search right now, it'll show the credit card transactions that were processed for today and the information that is there. So this is a very, very good tool to be able to quickly find any credit card transaction that was processed against any AR document or AR credit note. This completes today's demonstration of Paytelligence for Sage 300 AR customers. Let's see if we have any questions. If you do have questions, please feel free to use the chat area in the GoToWebinar panel, and we will read them out loud to share them and respond accordingly.
Hey, Carlos, it's Jerry speaking. We have a couple of questions from Jenna Lee, one of our attendees. First question is it possible to take payment for a miscellaneous receipt transaction type? For example, if the customer has not been invoiced, are we able to accept payment while keying the transaction as a miscellaneous receipt through a receipt batch?
Yes, you could do that using miscellaneous processor. However, whatever you enter in there, that payment, when approved, will show up as a prepayment. And there is one more stage step to align that PP document to your created invoice.
Okay, thanks, Carlos. Second question. Miscellaneous processor has answered my question. Thank you. So she's responding. You obviously presented that well, Carlos.
Oh, thank you. Awesome.
Any further questions?
I'll bring it up.
Here, I'll move that up. Back to you, Carlos.
Thank you. Well, if we don't have any further questions, I really do appreciate everyone's time. I know this is in the middle of your lunch hour, and I hope you found this demonstration valuable. Certainly, if you have greater interest to maybe have your own demonstration specific one-on-one, so we can apply it to the specific requirements you have regarding credit card transactions, please contact your DNA channel partner, and we will get that one-on-one demonstration scheduled with you.
Super.
Jerry?
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Carlos, for Thanks to everyone for attending our presentation today. We appreciate your attendance very much. We will email you a link for today's recording by Friday this week. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to sharing time with you again soon. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.